Hi. Um, I I recently got the opportunity to teach fiddle at some camps. I taught a couple workshops um, and also some one-on-one lessons, and found that I really loved it, and realized that I guess I knew for a while that I have a whole lot to say about the topic of learning fiddle, um, that may be useful for some people. And um, anyway, I just want to talk about it. And uh, currently being way off in the woods by myself, have time for this and no one to spew my thoughts at. So here goes. Um, yeah, I came. I've listened to this music for a while on a few CDs that I had, but since I was a kid, but only recently got an instrument and started to learn it, and um, it kind of has completely captivated me and took over my life in a good way. And yeah, so I guess to give a little bit of story there, just on like why why I have things to talk about. I didn't imagine that I would actually be able to like learn the fiddle as an adult in my 30s. Because people do that. They start when they're like 5 and stuff. And but I borrowed this fiddle and was like, I'll just mess around with it. And eventually I was like, I could actually play this. I mean, I kind of had that thought before, but it didn't. It was like, when am I going to spend the thousands of hours of practice, like exercises and stuff? Like, who wants to take that on as an adult? And um, I'm not at the point where I've done those thousands of hours of exercises, and I'm sure my playing is not what it might be if I had, but it's immensely enjoyable. I love it, and it's getting to the point where some other people seem to enjoy my playing too, which is, I love that too. Um, so yeah, so when I didn't know anything at the beginning, and there were no fiddle teachers around. I think I'd only ever seen a fiddle once in my life, maybe, before getting this one. And um, so there was YouTube, and there was like lots of stuff online to read, things, discussions on the session.org and so on. So I just read and watched as much as I could and kind of pieced together. I quickly realized though that there's lots of different ways to go about this. Some of them are contradictory. There's like different approaches, and people have strong feelings about things. And ultimately, I was going to have to decide for myself what I wanted to do. And part of that involves, there's a million ways that one could spend one's time with the instrument learning, like all the different potential exercises I could do. I could be like doing all these different things, and I have to somehow pick which ones to do in the given time that I had. And so yeah, the first couple of years, I went to some workshops at fiddle camps and things. Took a few online lessons with people, and mostly watched YouTube things and just tried all sorts of stuff. Um, and some books too. And I I mean it was kind of working, but there was a lot of stuff I was doing that wasn't super enjoyable, and I went down some what I would call dead ends that maybe if I was teaching myself again from the beginning, I wouldn't have to go down. Not that they were like wasted time, but just time that could have been spent in a better, more enjoyable way. Um, And things like, I would jump into a tune trying to keep a rhythm that I couldn't quite keep yet and try to play it really fast. And, and that was fun. Like, that was all I could do at the time. I, wanted to play fast, but it wasn't necessarily the most helpful. And yeah, I mean, I tend to like think about things a lot. I'm very curious about stuff, how things work, and like all the different possibilities. So I read a whole lot, and um, yeah, some of the things that I'll want to talk about is like how to go about practicing. I mean, like if someone's beginning at fiddle, like some of the people in the workshops that I've taught, they're not necessarily beginners, but they are relatively early on and like aren't happy with some aspect of their tone or intonation or just not being able to keep the beat or um, otherwise tense and stressed or something about it. It's not as fun as it could be. What I've noticed in those workshops is most of the people that I got the privilege to teach came to me later and said like how it really, they were excited about the fiddle again in a new way, and that thrilled me because it's like that's what I want for anyone. That's what I want for myself. And it is exciting. I mean, there's like endless possible beautiful sounds to make. And so other things, yeah, part of like, I have a bunch of different themes to talk about. One is like how to internalize the music, how to, yeah, I think that is how I'd put it, like how to internalize the music into the body and into the mind. And I have lots of thoughts on that. There's probably lots of science people and experts and stuff that know things about how to do this that I don't, that maybe I'll learn one day. And part of what I'm interested in talking into recording is so that I can like follow how I've changed my thinking on this over the years going forward. Yeah, just like see what I learn along the way. So how to internalize the music into the body, that's a big theme that I have a lot of thoughts and practices on. Because I think there's getting the music into the body, and then there's expressing the sound and rhythm that you feel and hear in your head onto the instrument. And so those are like the two halves of the thing, the way I see it. And neither of those requires any kind of memorization or even muscle memory of a tune. I think that's another thing that I found myself doing that at first. I was creating muscle memory for specific tunes when that wasn't really, I don't think that's the most helpful way to go about it. It's one way, it's fine. But at least for me is not the way that I want to go. There's getting the music into you, into me, and then there's creating the muscle memory of how to map the bits of sound, the things that I hear in my head onto the instrument, and like how to move the body in a way to make those sounds. And there's a whole lot that's interesting about how to make that happen easier and smoother and faster and more relaxedly. So I'm excited to explore all those ideas. And yeah, then there's the topic of just what to do with the time, like how to, I have a whole lot of thoughts on how to learn fiddle and the music without even touching the instrument in a way that can really, I think, at least for me, I feel like it's helped me become able to play much faster than I otherwise would, because I haven't had, I've had way more time with the music than I have had with the instrument. And then another aspect is what to do when I do have time with the instrument, how to practice. And I think there's a lot of potential to explore there. And all of this, like I don't see myself as an expert on this at all, but I do have a kind of unique experience of having learned everything that I've learned in the last 4 years. It's all very fresh, and I didn't learn this stuff as a kid, so it's kind of like I've very recently heard and read and experienced all these things, which is kind of fun. Still, I feel some weird need to make a disclaimer, like, listen at your own risk. This is just other perspectives on learning fiddle. There are lots of good teachers and teaching videos out there. And I encourage you to draw from as many sources as you can, as you want to. Find what works for you. And what I have to say is just like my perspective. And it's just one set of approaches to things. And hopefully it'll be helpful for some people. But it's really up to each person individually to choose what they'll use and when you're learning what to focus on, etc. But I do think it's useful to get as many different perspectives, and I think I have things to say that I haven't really heard other places, so that's why I wanted to do this. So I think what I'll do right now is jump into like what I would do in a first lesson with somebody who's relatively new to the fiddle but can play a tiny bit. And so, if you're already a good fiddle player, this might not be the most interesting to you, although it could be, as a way to think about maybe a different perspective on how to teach or what to start with because I often get the chance to like hand somebody my fiddle and they've never touched one before, and I get to help them experience the joy of making a sound on it. And I love that. And I remember when I first did that myself, and it was like kind of exciting. And so yeah, I'll jump into just what I like a little. It's hard to do with just voice and sound. There's no video here. Maybe I'll make a little YouTube video on this at some point, but that'll work. It'll be what it is. And then the next one of these, I don't know what I'll do, but it won't necessarily always be a lesson like this with the fiddle. I might just ramble on about exploring ideas related to the music and learning the fiddle and so on. And one thing that I care a lot about is how to practice, how to play the fiddle, how to make it a practice that benefits my body rather than harming it. So good ergonomics, playing in a way that doesn't lead to any kind of tightness or tension or soreness or anything or injury, because I want to play for like 60 or 70 more years, and I want the fiddle to contribute to that possibility rather than taking away from it. And I think it makes better music when I'm relaxed and it's going smoothly. But there's, the name holistic fiddle, I feel like there's, how you do anything is how you do everything. I've heard that quote. There's kind of nothing that's not related. So we'll see where this goes. The whole thing is about making a beautiful sound that you enjoy. And it's actually possible to do that right away, even for someone who's not, you don't have to have a lot of skill to be able to make an enjoyable sound. And then from that first beautiful sound, you can add things to it and eventually grow into playing whole tunes and whatnot. And the thing can be a beautiful musical experience the whole time. It doesn't have to be like 5 years or 10 years of like slogging away, making scratchy, awful sounds, and then eventually it will become better until you can play. I mean, that's one way to do it, but not. Yeah, I would recommend this way that kind of has worked for me. So yeah, like it's important to have the fiddle set up properly and have a bow that works with enough rosin on it, strings that are new enough, and a bridge that's set up properly. And yeah, I can, if you're not sure about your setup, you can contact me and I'd be happy to talk about it. Or find a fiddle teacher that can address that with you. But I've often found beginner fiddle players, something's wrong with their fiddle setup and it's not sounding as good as it might. And it's not because they can't do it, it's just not set up well. And it's worth addressing that right away. It'll just be so much more enjoyable. So, yeah, the first exercise I would always start with is just take the bow on the open G string and just make one luxurious note and just really enjoy that note. And you can slow down the bow or speed up the bow and then do it again. Just keep changing the direction of the bow, but stay on that note and find a tone that sounds good. And of course, a lot of this is keeping the bow straight across the string, perpendicular to the string. You don't want it sliding at an angle forward or back. And this part would be easier with a video, but just assume you know what I'm talking about because there's nothing else I can do. Yeah, so I'll just and I haven't talked about how to hold the fiddle or the bow yet, but presumably you're holding it somehow. And I would say that the most important thing there, like your fiddle holding and bow hold can change. You can change that later on. But what's worth focusing on is being as relaxed as possible, which you can't be completely relaxed because if you're completely relaxed, the fiddle and the bow will just fall on the floor and you'll fall over. But you can be minimally relaxed, or as relaxed as possible, minimal amount of tension. So you're holding up the fiddle with your hand, but you're not squeezing it. You're not squeezing it with your neck. You're gently pressing the fiddle against your body, but it's like you're not really pushing it against your body. There's just the slightest amount of pressure so that it doesn't fall forward. And you're not squeezing down on the chin rest with your chin or your neck. And you're not pinching the fiddle between your thumb and finger or your thumb and your hand. It's just resting there. And the bow, you're not squeezing it, you're not pinching it. It's in your hand with the least amount of tension possible. And it's kind of like resting on your thumb a little bit and your fingers that are curled underneath it slightly. And then your forefinger or your pinky is kind of putting pressure on the top of it so that it doesn't fall. But it's the minimal amount of pressure. And then you rest it on the strings and it takes even less tension, less pressure to hold the bow there. And then you slide it. And you can vary how much you're pushing into the bow I really recommend trying everything from like the least amount of pressure, where you're just kind of sliding the bow across the strings without pushing it in at all, and then put a lot of pressure on it from above, usually with your index finger, and you'll get a really loud sound. And try that. Yeah, so I realize this could be boring for people who know a lot about fiddle already. The rest of this episode will just be me doing this little intro class thing. And in future episodes, I'll talk about various exercises or things, also get a little philosophical and talk about approaches to practicing and how to practice and what to focus on and things like that. Not as if I'm some expert on this, but just to share another perspective. I have all sorts of thoughts about different things that may be useful. I just want to be able to say them. It's all right if they're boring, you can just skip it or don't listen. So yeah, back to the exercise. Making one luxurious note on the G string and using as little pressure as possible. Then try pushing in. When you push, the pressure that you're putting, you're not squeezing the bow, you're just pushing down on the bow with your index finger. And the weight's coming, it's not just coming from the finger, it's coming from the whole hand or arm, but it's coming through the finger, which is resting on top of the bow. I'll probably have to make a YouTube video to kind of show what I mean here, but there are lots of YouTube videos on how to hold the bow. So you can probably find other ones that will be just as good. The important thing though is not to have tension, to not be squeezing or pinching the bow. And it matters a lot less how you're holding it than like the way that your hand is set up on it matters a lot less than whether you have tension. You can hold the bow with just a couple of fingers or all of them, but if you have tension in your hand, that's the thing that you want to change. And later on, your hand will change how it's holding the bow anyway. I notice I hadn't really thought about my bow hold in a year, and it's a bit different than it was a year ago. But the point is, it didn't have tension the whole time. It kind of found its way to a new place. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about with that, and I'm sure I'll get into that more, but yeah, this exercise, just keep drawing the bow across the string. And just keep doing that until it sounds good to you, until it's a beautiful sound. You can slow down how fast you're pushing and pulling the bow, and you can speed it up. You can vary the pressure while you're going across the strings. It's just giving you the beginning of a sense of how much potential there is in a single note to express a whole lot. And when we add in the left hand fingers, it suddenly will become multiplied. There'll be a whole bunch more that can be expressed. So yeah, we can do that now. I guess do this for a while, but when you feel ready and you want to add in the left hand, we'll take the index finger and put it down on the first position, the A note on the G string. And to find that position, just listen to what I do and then try to do the same thing. So that's the sound you're going for. And if you find your finger goes in a different spot at first, it'll just sound bad, like. But when you put it down and it doesn't sound like where you want it, you can just try sliding that finger around until it's in the right place. And notice you can slide the finger. You can also roll the finger, like if you're pressing down on the string, you can rock the finger back and forth on the pad of the finger. So you're not sliding it across the string, it's just rolling slightly, as it like a wheel. And it's worth playing with that a lot because you'll do that very subtly when you're playing to change the intonation slightly. I kind of find that my fingers are always doing that a little bit on most notes. And you don't have to think about it once your hand knows that it can do that. We'll talk a lot more about this, but your body can just do the thing that it knows it needs to do to make the sound that you imagine. But yeah, so back to the... and once you have it there, then you can experiment with, like, what you don't want to be doing is pinching the neck of the fiddle with your finger and your thumb and your hand. You're not squeezing it, you're not pinching it, you're not pressing it all the way down. You can try it. But if you just press very gently, so you're not squeezing the string into the fingerboard, you're just pressing it down enough to make the sound that you want. That way you have flexibility in how hard you press that. And how hard you press it changes the quality of the note, changes the tone a bit. And less pressure generally is what you want because, you need enough. Just like with everything, you need just enough tension and pressure to make the sound you want. But you don't really need more than that. And the less you use, the less tension in your hand, the less your hand will get tired. And the faster you can do everything. So, less pressure. Of course, if you put too little pressure, it'll just muffle the sound. You don't want that. So you push in a little more. Just enough so that it sounds good. And then you can play around with those two notes. And you have flexibility in the intonation now. You can rock that finger slightly, and the quality of that note will change dramatically. So play around with that. And yeah, in order to, I think I'll wrap this up here and we'll see what I get into in the next one. But yeah, that's basically where I would want to start. And where I started 4 years ago was finding one note. And I would go to these jam circles, drum circles at the farmer's market here. We were doing after the market. And I would just find one note that kind of went along with whatever was happening. And then I could play around with the bow on that note. That way I didn't worry about clashing my note with, with the thing. And it could sound good. And I could spend like 3 hours or whatever in that jam, just playing one note at a time. And I kind of got a lot of tone practice that way and didn't feel boring. I wasn't like at home by myself trying to get tone. So I was playing quiet enough at first, and then just making it louder as it started to sound good to me. So if you have a jam of some sort that you can go to, that's something you could do. So yeah, we'll wrap it up there, and I'll be back soon, probably. Enjoy.